Yeah, my name's Liv. Hello. I used to actually work at It's Nice That for about 4 years. I used to hand out beer at this, so how the tables have turned. Anyway, so about a year and a half ago, I quit It's Nice That and then went freelance for about sort of 6 months and was just absolutely, sorry, I'll start this, absolutely terrified about the idea of having left such a good company and like floundering around a bit. And I was writing loads of stuff for independent magazines and doing talks like this and just doing loads of crap, really. And it was in the summer, so I wasn't really doing that much work, and I was kind of poor, and it was a bit shit. And I'm having a bit of a crisis, and I was saying to a friend of mine, like, I just want to join a really cool team again, because I was a bit lonely, and I want to go to New York, and I really want to make a music magazine, because I kind of started doing my own one anyway. And the next day after I had said that, I got an email from one of the directors of Rough Trade. He was like, oh, I found you on LinkedIn. Turns out you can do podcasts and magazines. We're trying to find someone to come and do a monthly print magazine and make some radio shows for Rough Trade and make some video content. And I was like, wow, that's like my dream job. So I went in for a chat and then got the job the next day, and then just suddenly realized that that was absolutely terrifying. So this is where I work. I don't know if you've been to Rough Trade before. There's Rough Trade Records and Rough Trade Shops. They're actually separate. But I work in this. This is Rough Trade East. There's also a shop in West London and in New York and in Nottingham. And yeah, so this is it. That's inside. I work on like a kind of grotty mezzanine covered in shit up on the left-hand side. So I kind of got to this job, and I'd already helped make the magazine for It's Nice That before, and I had done the It's Nice That podcast, and also done events and things. So I was kind of okay about doing it, but I was just kind of sat at my desk, and they were like, cool, just make a magazine in the next like 6 months. And then I was just like, oh God, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. So I just sort of sat there, and I just didn't really have any help. I was completely on my own. And so I started just looking at other music magazines for inspiration. You know, the kind of free ones you get. There's loads of great ones in London. And I was looking at the ones you could kind of get at the moment anyway. All fantastic magazines, all written like amazing, serious journalism about music. There's really good reviews. I mean, it's just fantastic, great commissioning, really good stuff happening. But I kind of found it quite daunting because they're all so techy and intelligent and sometimes a bit inaccessible and, as you can see, quite serious. I kind of realized that the only thing I could do is kind of put my own, I don't know, like the stuff that I find really inspiring and fun and silly into a magazine, because there's kind of wasn't really any point adding to what's already out there, and there's already so much good, serious stuff. I kind of thought, well, the stuff I'm into is Viz, Private Eye, The Face, smash hits. I've always been really big into magazines since I was a kid, so I just kind of was thinking maybe it'd be nice to add some irreverence in there, kind of use the It's Nice That tone as well, like happiness and goodness. There's no point writing a bad review about anything, because what's the point in doing that? That's just bad for the world. But so I wanted to make a really positive magazine that did all those things, maybe like hire some people to do comics and just kind of take inspiration from all the magazines that I loved as a kid. I remember like being a teenager, I used to get my sister to bring back all her copies of like The Face and ID back from London. And I remember every single magazine had like a picture of someone smiling on every page, and I really liked that, and that kind of made me want to move to London and make magazines and do features and stuff like that. So I was kind of thinking about just making something quite fun and kind of zany. But then I was like, wait a minute, I've got no idea how to actually design a magazine. So I was having a bit of a panic. And then, so an old familiar face from It's Nice That called Bruce Usher, who's a designer, just came into Rough Trade to have a beer and talk about his love life. This is Bruce. He's sitting over there in the white hat in the middle. He came in to have a chat about his, just like whatever, because we were just hanging out, and I was telling him about this magazine problem I had, and he was like, I'll do it for you. So we just ended up becoming like a team doing it together. So we had to then sit down in a very short space of time and work out what is Rough Trade and how we're going to make it look like super good and make it really kind of, a lot of the Rough Trade customers and fans are quite particular, and they understand what Rough Trade is, and it would be quite easy to get this really wrong, and we didn't want to upset anyone because, you know, that would just be horrendous. So we kind of made some ideas, and we just kind of put together an idea of what Rough Trade was just based on the shop. So smelly toilets, big part for me, because it's just like all the toilets are like graffitied and covered in shit, and they've got like fag ends in them, and it's just like, that feels quite Rough Tradey. Devoted customers, hangovers, door is always wide open, the staff, that's like the biggest, most important thing. Squidgy around the edges, dirty floor, swearing, music, obviously, the history of it. So we kind of put that all together, and we launched the first magazine in April. So this is the cover of the first magazine. We decided that because, I don't want to go back to my slides in case I can't find it. Oh yeah, because all the other magazines have celebrities and bands on the cover, we thought it would be cool to make a rule that we'll never do that. So this cover, there's an interview with Charles Bradley, the soul singer, in the first issue, and that's his pet parrot. So we sent this photographer to his house to photograph his pet parrot. So that was quite nice. And the back cover is just all the contributors, because we kind of wanted to make it about who's writing for it rather than like all the celebrities and bands, because you know that's kind of boring anyway. I'm going to just show you the methods that we have of making it easy to make a 64-page magazine every 2 weeks on your own, because that is the life I'm living at the moment, alongside making radio shows and films for Rough Trade. So we had to come up with solutions for this. So basically, lock down as many regular contributors and features as is humanly possible, lock them down. So I was just kind of thinking about like easy, cool features. So agony aunt, first one, you've got to have an agony aunt in a magazine. So we got Jonathan Richman. I just emailed Jonathan Richman's manager because I was like, that'll be hilarious. If you don't know who he is, he's like a really old man who lives in America who has no phone and no computer. So making my life very difficult from the start. So he used to be in the Modern Lovers, and he's a very famous old musician, and he just said, yeah, he'd love to. So every month, we send him letters from people, just questions about life, and he answers them. And then a woman called Debbie transcribes it and sends it to me. I don't know what happens, how it works, but it happens. So that's locked down. We also have a feature, 2 spreads per issue, which is staff picks. So all the staff from all Rough Trade get to like suggest books or films or music or albums. It took a while to persuade everyone that this was going to be a good idea, because a lot of them have never written before. They kind of just listen to music. They're so passionate about music. And so to get them to write stuff down when they were a bit nervous about their writing style was a little bit bad, but now it's way easier and people are quite into it. And we're putting embarrassing photos in, which they love. And also, every month we do a horoscope, which we get bands to write. Weirdly, it's quite easy to get bands to write horoscopes. People just seem to be quite up for it. I was worried that I'd ask people to do it and they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But they love it. And it turns out if you ask bands to do quite fun stuff, they're really into it. This is one from Sunflower Bean, and it's illustrated by Adam Higdon, who is an old person that I used to write about on It's Nice That all the time. In fact, every contributor is someone that I wrote about on It's Nice That, because I feel like they kind of owe me a favor. So I'm like, hey, help me out. Other ways we kind of fill up the magazine is we get a lot of famous people coming into the store, and we tend to just grab them and take photos of them going through records and picking out records and saying why they like each one, and we just photograph them doing it. I do it, or someone else does it. So we had John Malkovich coming in a few months ago. So he was just wandering around the shop and we were photographing him, and I was like, oh, can I interview you about music? And he was like, yeah. And then like, we started the interview, it was like for an hour long, and I was like, so do you like music? And he was like, not really, no. So like, it was just like a stupid, but we had to put it in because it's John Malkovich, so it is quite a good interview, but he just talks about like using his iPod and how his children sent him Spotify playlists, which is fine, you know, that's totally fine. We also have, I got this guy called Joff Owen. An email went round in Rough Trade. Someone found a list on his computer of things he was scared of. That was like a private document that leaked. Which is this. This is a very small segment of it. So you can just see. I think number 35 is like the one. I'm going to need to change slide. I've got no time. Anyway, so this came out, and I was like, Joff, do you want to just like describe why you're scared of this stuff every month? And he was like, yeah, double-page spread every month, gets it. So he just does that. And it's nice to have it by a staff member because it keeps it all Rough Tradey. And like, what other music magazine's going to have a weird mail-order man from Rough Trade writing about his fear of peanuts? So other ways of doing it, I've got to really hurry up now. Handing stuff over to the band. Another way to take up space very quickly is just to basically get bands to take loads of photos of themselves. So I just kind of pay money for them to have disposable cameras when they go on tour, and then get them to send them back. And actually, I've never been let down so far. They seem to quite like doing it. This is the Alalas on tour. I just got them to take pictures of each other. It's very sweet. Oh, sorry, Alalas. Sorry, this is Whitney. My bad. This is the Alalas. So they just kind of send back these photos of them posing and looking cool, and that can take up 6 to 10 spreads, which is fine by me because I've got to do it really quickly. Also, we got Tim Presley from White Fence to do a comic. I've been a big fan of his work for ages, and he was like, oh, do you just want like 1 spread? And I was like, no, we'll have 10. So again, he just kind of like sent in like all this comics. But he was so happy because he always gets interviewed about his music, but no one ever really concentrates on his artwork. So that was kind of cool for him and us. And we do things that we visit. This is inside Sub Pop, the label in Seattle. We just send photographers to go and photograph inside the offices of labels because that's kind of a part you never really see. And even though it can be quite boring, I don't know, it's kind of a nice thing. I don't know. If you run out of budget, do everything yourself. Don't have to do a lot of that. I went to New York and photographed inside Daptone Records, similar kind of feature, because we didn't have any budget, and I borrowed my brother's camera, and it just seemed like the right thing to do. And it ended up being a really nice feature that Bruce designed beautifully. And also, I just find people on the internet and get them to do stuff as well. So this is a guy called Brian Boone, who I found, who wrote this. And I was like, take it offline immediately, I want to use it. So I just paid him like 50 quid and then used it in my magazine, which is nice. But it's entries on Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time list, whose titles sound like fart jokes. So it's quite self-explanatory, fun, zany. Again, it's good, right? I think Piper at the Gates of Dawn is like the one. Yeah, so again, it's like making stuff that other music magazines might not necessarily put in. Also, me and Bruce, when we just run out of budget, which we have very minimal of anyway, when we run out of budget, we just tend to kind of make the cover ourselves. So we kind of broke the rule a bit by putting Angel Olsen and a big heart on the front cover, because we're not meant to have celebs on the cover. But it's Angel Olsen, so I was like, it's fine, because she's one of the only women albums of the month we've had for ages, and we wanted to make a cool collage. So sometimes we just get around budget stuff by just making collages and covers ourselves. Same for the most recent issue. That's just a quote from the horoscope of that month. It says, don't let any self-pitying tendencies keep you down this month, yeah? Which is nice. Kind of autumnal too. So yeah, me and Bruce are just like working together. This is us. It's just literally like I just get the content, and then every month he just designs it, and we sit in his studio and just go through all the mistakes and proof it and get it all wrong, and then have a nice time. And it just kind of taught me that you don't really need loads of time. A lot of magazines need months and months and months to go to print, and they get like proof for weeks on end. But for us, we just kind of do it once a month, just for like 3 days together. And we realized that this is probably the only time we'll ever get where we get paid to make a magazine that has no rules, because no one at Rough Trade ever sees it before it goes to print. So we can put in fart jokes, we can do whatever, we can put in swear words. Our directors, I don't think, really have like read it even in that depth. It could be really offensive, no one even knows. So I think we'll probably do it for a bit longer just to have that joy, because we don't think we'll ever get that again in our careers. But yeah, and you can get the magazine at Rough Trade. It's £4, or it's free if you spend £15 or over. And that's all of them so far. And that's it.